Go up, pace out the walls of Uruk. Study the foundation terrace and examine the brickwork. Is not its masonry of kiln-fired brick? And did not 7 masters lay its foundations? 1 square mile of city, 1 square mile of gardens, 1 square mile of clay pits, a half square mile of Ishtar's dwelling. 3.5 square miles is the measure of Uruk. The text I just read for you is 600 years older than any Hindu text. It's 1,000 years older than any Jewish text. It's 2,000 years older than any Buddhist text. It's 2,200 years older than any Christian text. And it's 2,600 years older than any Muslim Holy Scripture. From this story I have read, I am of course talking about the Epic of Gilgamesh. This story was written in cuneiform, a now dead language, which is the oldest written language that we possess in the history of mankind. The story in this epic is about Gilgamesh, a king of Uruk. Uruk was an ancient city in Mesopotamia, which goes back at least to 4,000 years before Christ. That's 6,000 years from today, to give or take, of course. Now, the earliest foundation of the city of Uruk that we know of is 2,700 before Christ. BC, BCO, call it what you want. And the oldest written down text we have of the Epic of Gilgamesh is around 2,100 before Christ. That means the oldest text we have of this epic tale is 600 years after it's presumed that Gilgamesh might have lived. Now, the Babylonians were an interesting people, because this text isn't just written in Babylonian. No, the scribes wrote in a dual language, so they also wrote in what was known as Akkadian language, which is the oldest Semitic language that we know of, until it started to be replaced by early ancient Aramaic around 800 BC. Now, why should anyone read a book like this? How is it relevant in the year 2023? Not only, if you read it, you can actually say you've read the oldest epic tale in the history of mankind. But that's not the important part. No, Gilgamesh, the king, was, in the beginning of the story, he is rough, and he's not treating the people of Uruk very nicely. And so the people ask the gods for somebody to create a companion for Gilgamesh. And they do. He's called Enkidu. And he's a savage. Roams the steppes with the wild beast. Is only brought into what we might call a rational mind through the use of intimacy of a woman. A whore, to be exactly precise. Now in the Babylonian time, there were different levels of the sexual women. And the one roaming the streets was the lowest of the low, but there were also the divine, semi-divine ones. And she was one of those. You see, when you read this text, it seems distant in time, because it is. And many things to a modern reader will seem out of place. Things we might not fully understand and associate with. Symbolisms, language, society. It's a very distant past. But at the same time, it's fundamentally human. Because the two things this story really centers about is the friendship between Gilgamesh and Enkidu. And they go on exploits to kill Hubala, the great beast in the Cedar forest. Knowingly they do so against the wills of the gods. So they have to hurry. And Enkidu expresses terror and fear. He's scared. Gilgamesh tells him that, how can you do great deeds if you're still scared? This is fundamentally human. But eventually, Enkidu dies. And the result of Gilgamesh is devastating. He roams the steppe. He cannot live. He cannot die. He realizes that he is mortal. But his friendship with Enkidu was so heartfelt, so deep, that it ruins him as a person, and he starts to fear death, and he can no longer contain the reality that he also is mortal. And so he seeks out a way to find a solution to death, which he never finds. So despite this story being written 2100 before the Common Era, or 4100 years ago, it still contains something fundamentally human. And not only that, it influenced much later text. Gilgamesh is mentioned in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in a book specifically called the Book of Giants. So, why should you read this book in the year 2023? Because it's fundamentally human. It deals with fear. It deals with friendship. And it deals with the ego. Gilgamesh doesn't do all this because of a good deed. He's not doing it for the sake of the gods. He's not doing it to help his people. No. He goes out with Enkidu to slay the monster Ubala in order to gain eternal fame. Something that a lot of people still want. But unlike Gilgamesh, they will not last this long. So go and read the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest epic tale in the world.